All right, welcome back, boys and girls. This lesson is Unit 3, Lesson 13, and Unit 3, Lesson 16, adding and subtracting decimals. Yes, we are still in the wonderful world of decimals. And you might say, Miss Aiken, what is this wacky paper that we have today instead of our white paper that we normally have? Well, it is special because of the very special rule we have when we are dealing with the standard algorithm of adding and subtracting decimals. And remember, an algorithm is the regular way of solving an equation. So when we say regular way, we mean the equation where we stack it up and down the vertical way, and we have an operation symbol and all of that. So let's get to it. We're just going to jump into it right off the deep end with both feet because it's that easy. All right, so let's try right away. Let's try a fairly simple one. Let's say we have 1 and 2/10 plus 3 and 6/10. And you say, Mrs. Aiken, what's with this like really far apart deal? Well, the reason why I want to write it this way is because I want to illustrate the most important part of this whole thing. Lining up the decimals. They have to be right on top of one another, okay? As a matter of fact, they're so on top of one another, and I'm so confident that they're one on top of the other that I can drop down the third decimal in the sum, in the answer part of the equation, okay? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to line up these decimals because it's that important. We cannot answer an addition equation when we're dealing with decimals if they are not lined up. They must be stacked, okay? And then we just go through and add like normal. 2 plus 6 is 8. 1 plus 3 is 4. That's it. That's all we have to do. The only thing that you must remember is to have those lined up, one on top of the other. That's the only rule that you must remember. And then just add like normal, okay? It works the exact same way with subtraction, okay? 4 and 8/10 minus 3 and 6/10. Okay, again, we've got to keep those lined up. Just drop down that decimal, and now we subtract. 8 minus 6 is 2. 4 minus 3 is 1. And we can check our work, and sure enough, there it is. We just have to make sure that we line up those decimals. Well, what happens when we have kind of a wonky thing like this? It still works. What if we have 42 hundredths and 3 and 4/10? Do we write it like this? No. Are they lined up? Absolutely not. So that's why I love this graph paper, okay? And you can just Google it, free printable graph paper, and do it yourself. 3 and 4/10. Okay? Actually, you know what I want to do? I want to show you something. So let's do 3 and 7/10. Okay? Now, this hurts my eyeballs, okay? Because it's not perfect. So, and it's hard to kind of figure it out. So we've learned that 7 dimes or 7/10 is the same as 70 pennies or 70 hundredths. Okay, so I can put a 0 there. And since there's no whole number here, we can put a 0 here. All right, whew, that helps me a little bit. All right, so let's do it that way. Okay, and then we just add like normal because now our decimals are lined up. We couldn't do anything until our decimals were lined up. All right, So let's do it like normal. 4 plus 7 is 11. Well, where can I put the 11? It's exact same. It's the exact same as normal. We just carry that 11. We carry that 1 past the decimal over to the whole number. 1 plus 3 is 4. Okay? And same thing over here. Okay? Oops. 4 and 12 hundredths minus 42 hundredths. Okay, and remember, I started to write 42 hundredths over here, but then my decimals wouldn't be lined up. So, my decimals need to be lined up over here. Now I'm subtracting. 2 minus 2 is 0. I can't take 4 from 1, so I come over here and borrow just like I would in a normal subtraction. Okay, and that turns this into an 11. 11 minus 4 is 7. And 3 minus, and if I wanted to, I could put a 0 here. 3 minus 0 is 3. Okay? Very good. Okay, but then you say, Mrs. Aiken, if we start working on our problems from page 139 in our activity book for today, it looks a lot different than what you're talking to me about. That is exactly right. Well, good question, but you know what? Have no fear. We've got our models, and you have your models that came with your math kit. So I need you to have those today. This is a whole, this is a tenth, and this is 1 unit or 1/100th. Now, the reason why we call this 1 unit is it takes 100 of these, okay? 100 of these make up 1 whole, okay? 1 of these units makes up a 10 or a tenth, okay, because it takes 10 of these, all right? So play around with these for a little bit, but something I really want to remind you of, because we've been talking about this whole unit, looky here. Don't forget this, okay? That's what I wanted to remind you of, all right? This helps me when I get stuck, all right? Decimals are money. 10 dimes equals $1. 100 pennies equals $1, okay? All right? 10 pennies equals a dime, all right? It's the exact same thing, all right? So when you get stuck thinking about these models, think about them as money, and it will help you, okay? So let's look at number 1 very quickly, all right? Let's look here. Now, we've got our 10 rods, okay? And they want us to shade 6 of these, okay? 6 tenths. So let's shade. There's 3. So there's 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so we've shaded those. Those are all shaded. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now it wants us to shade 8 more. So let's shade 8 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so now we have shaded 6 tenths and 8 tenths. All right, and so what have we ended up shading? Well, we have 1 whole shaded, and that's where this and comes in, remember? And how many of these tenths? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 tenths. All right? And if we come back over here, we can add that up, right? 6 tenths plus 8 tenths. Okay? Remember, we line up those decimals. Okay? 6 plus 8 is 14. Carry that 1 like we normally would. 1 plus 0 is 1. 1 and 4 tenths. Exactly. Okay? Let's look here very quickly. 1 and 5 tenths plus 2 and 7 tenths. Well, let's look and see how it wants us to answer this question. This model shows a total, so it wants us to count, okay, a total of how many wholes? How many of these? Okay, remember this is a whole, all right? Well, let's count. 1, 2, 3. So 3 wholes. And how many tenths? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 tenths. Well, we learned in our number line lesson that you can't write 12 tenths, right? That's more than a whole, isn't it? So, what we need to do is regroup, don't we? So, I would have another whole and 2 tenths, right? Because 12 tenths, all right? So, 12 tenths would make one more whole with 2 left over, right? Or, if I wanted to do this, 1 and 5 tenths, 2 and 7 tenths, you can check your work, okay? 7 plus 5 is 12. Carry the 1, okay? Remember, we have to have our decimals lined up. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 2 more is 4. So 4 and 2 tenths. Very good. 4 wholes and 2 tenths. So 4 and 2 tenths. Awesome! We did it! All right. If you have questions, as always, make sure and ask your teacher. Get out your models. Play with these. Break into your piggy bank. Okay? Ask your parents for some money. No, I'm just kidding. Get some grid paper. It really helps you. Remember, subtraction is just reverse addition. All right. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.